Hey, welcome back everyone. It is now January 2nd of 2022, and ever since the very end of The Mandalorian Season 2 and The Bad Batch, and exactly what we have coming now with the Book of Boba Fett, Mando Season 3, the Ahsoka Tano series, and more like the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, I mean, there's so much positive Star Wars shows on the horizon that's really getting a lot of excitement out of the fans, as well as a lot of passion through John, George, and Dave. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future Star Wars updates. Also, by the way, guys, I am on Twitter at Mike01 if you guys want to go ahead and give me a follow on there. I do post a couple of entertaining things from time to time and really make sure to interact with you guys further. So we're now in a very interesting phase of Star Wars, given that we are just days away from the Book of Boba Fett Chapter 2, which is going to further explain more about Boba Fett's story in between the events of Episode 5 and 6, and everything that comes in between Episode 6 and Mando as well. We're going to be getting a lot of flashbacks about his life, which is great. Now, the thing about the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV series, we do know that the marketing run for that show is going to start by March of this year. They're setting everything up for Star Wars Celebration and, of course, for the actual release date of the show on Disney+. I think the fact that, you know, we have a lot of people like John and Dave, as well as George Lucas, working more with the marketing of these shows and exactly how they're doing the TV spots and how they're doing the teasers and the trailers and the like. It really seems like it's working on really getting the word out on TV shows out there. The Book of Boba Fett was a great example of that. However, when it all dwindles down to Lucasfilm's Kathleen Kennedy, alright, we already know that there's been a lot of problems with the Acolyte TV series, alright? There's been a lot of setbacks, a lot of firings of co-writers and directors that were supposed to come on board for some of the episodes, as well as a lot of creative differences, if you believe it or not, between Kathleen Kennedy and Leslie Headland. I mean, I would have never even imagined that actually have happened, but it did. There were creative differences between herself and Leslie. However, when it all comes down to Kathleen Kennedy, with both Disney and Lucasfilm now fully focused on their new shows and movies that will be announced by this May at Star Wars Celebration, both John and Dave are preparing to film the Ahsoka Tano series, as well as wrapping Mando Season 3 by the end of this March. However, one major change recently occurred behind the scenes over at Lucasfilm that involves Kathleen Kennedy. Now, further, it's described that though Kathleen Kennedy was recently let go from working on the Old Republic series on a creative level that will be announced, one of the other Star Wars TV shows that is going to begin filming again by this summer is one that Kathleen Kennedy recently quit from working on. It's described that Kathleen Kennedy recently stepped down and quit as a producer from the second season of Star Wars Andor that begins filming this July. One of the main reasons why Kathleen Kennedy had quit from the series had to do with the fact that Kathleen Kennedy having no creative power or control over the series, and how she was running into some form of creative differences again on how Darth Vader was to be used in the second season, if at all, of Andor. So let me just stop right here for a second. In case you guys did not know Star Wars Andor, I think the only thing that it really has going for it right now are, if you like Rogue One, a Star Wars story, then you're going to like Star Wars Andor. I feel like that people that had issues with Rogue One, it's going to be a bit of an obstacle for them to really enjoy Andor. That's just my take on things. But the one great thing about this show is that they are going to be showing Darth Vader in his full might, like how we did in Rogue One's End. So in Rogue One's End, alright, it was all because of Kathleen Kennedy that we did not get to see more than what we got in the hallway sequence. We were supposed to have an entire beach scene on Scarif of Vader taking down rebels one by one with his saber. That was actually going to be a big deal. Kathleen Kennedy decided to do the less is more approach. Some of you may agree with that, I don't know, but I feel that it would have been best to keep that in there. Now, with the Kenobi series, of course, you know, Darth Vader is going to be a big highlight of the show, and so will he be in Andor. Andor is going to be a very special TV show for Darth Vader. We're going to be learning a little bit more about what his life is like before the events of Rogue One, and it's kind of going to be a very interesting era, because we're going to be learning more about the struggle between the rebellion and the Empire, and everything that comes in between. So, past all of this, alright, it's described that both John and Dave will have tons of influence over the series by the second season and when it begins filming, and that now Jon Favreau is being looked at by Disney's higher-ups to act as a producer for the Andor series. Now, though Favreau is not planned to write the show or direct it, he is set to produce the second season instead of Kathleen Kennedy, marking it as the first Star Wars project, since Disney took over that, of course, if Kathleen Kennedy would not produce. Favreau is said to have the ability to call the shots on what lore is to be used. However, Kennedy is no longer going to be producing Andor Season 2, as she was originally intended to, and is now walking away from the series entirely. So that's another interesting thing to kind of take in right now, is the fact that this is going to be the first major project under Lucasfilm and Disney that Kathleen Kennedy will not produce herself. You guys may very well remember that in the credits of all the movies and, all the solo films like, Solo and Rogue One, it was all produced by Kathleen Kennedy. Now that she's off of Andor Season 2, Bob Chapek and the higher-ups over at Disney are pushing for Favreau to act as a producer for Andor Season 2. Not as a writer or a director, because he's going to be busy with a lot of other stuff, but as a producer. Now, Jon Favreau does have a lot of experience as a producer, and that really does make a lot more sense. So, moving past this, however, Kennedy is no longer going to be producing Andor Season 2 as she was originally intended to. This is something that Tony Gilroy, did not agree with at all with Kathleen Kennedy by not using Darth Vader in Season 2, and kept on trying to convince her that Vader was a must for Season 1 and even Season 2, something that Kennedy wanted to actually get rid of in the very beginning. Now, Tony Gilroy, in case you guys did not know, he is the writer of Andor Season 1. He's going to be attached to Season 2 already, and they're already pushing for Season 3. I mean, there's a lot of things happening with the Andor series because of how it's going to have a lot of connections to the original trilogy. So Kennedy wanted to actually wind down the use of Vader, as she believes he is being used way too often at this point. Kennedy kept on having creative issues with Tony Gilroy over the second season of Andor, which is now in the pre-production phase before they begin filming this summer. With Kennedy now out, Bob Chapek has convinced Favreau to hop on board as a producer for Andor, and that all of this will be officially announced at Star Wars Celebration in May. Now, Vader is planned to be of significance in the Andor series, with many new fight sequences going up against the Rebels. Kennedy is said to be upset over Disney moving forward with this decision, as Kennedy had hoped that Andor would actually act as a limited series if she were to step down. Since she did, Favreau is said to take full control over the direction of the show from this point on forward. Now, here's the deal about this, alright? The fact that Andor Season 2 is going to be a very special middle point of the series, because they only plan on doing 3 seasons and calling it quits after that. I kind of like that. I kind of like how, we're getting a little bit of shows that are limited, some shows that are going to be multi-season shows. The problem that I have is that what they're doing with Ahsoka and Obi-Wan is that they're pushing for them to be limited series until they see great fan reception, alright? Until they see a lot of the positive reviews rolling in, it is up until then that they're actually going to decide on whether or not they want to make it into a multi-season show. The problem that I have is that you have other shows like Andor and stuff around those lines, like Mandalorian, that are multi-season shows already. But the shows that are going to feature beloved characters that are really well respected, like Ahsoka and Kenobi, right now are just being treated as a limited series. I don't understand that. I never really understood that approach, and that's something that John and Dave are trying to really change, and that is something that's also being negotiated as well. So let me know what you guys think about all this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.